back to Blue Cross, will we be able to get the exact same plan at Shenango Forks, which is an indemnity plan? Because there is some rumors going around that that's not the case, that Blue Cross or Excellus would not allow us to go back to that it would end up being a different kind of Excellus plan, which would be, let's say, like a PPO.
So that's a good question. So right now the district has two plans in place. It has a classic blue indemnity, as you mentioned. It also has a PPO. So the decision on allowing retirees back in to one of the Excellus plans that the district currently offers, that would be totally up to the district. Excellus would just enroll you in whatever the district instructed us to enroll you into.
Okay, so am I hearing you correctly? My husband is in this situation. He has Excellus, the indemnity, so he's going to get, excuse my phrasing, get kicked off or bumped into the Humana. And if we choose to go back to Excellus, if the district has that in writing that it is the indemnity plan, Excellus will accept that we can still go back to the indemnity plan.
Correct. Excellus through the BTD consortium, which you are a part of for your active employees, Excellus enrolls and disenrolls by instruction only. So in other words, each and every district within the consortium polices its own enrollment and disenrollment. They simply tell us what to do and we administer it. Yes.
Okay, that sounds great. And Dr. Peck, while I'm on this topic, this isn't for Jay, but it's just something that I was also asked for you, possibly even to address later, is that will the district still be kicking or contributing the same amount of money that you currently do when this happens?
Percentage. Yes, Pat, the percentage. And can I go back and touch on your first question to Mr. Bongiorno too?
Sure.
Is the plan, I just got off a Zoom call with Mary M. and Jonathan Edwards, and I believe we're going to notate that in the MOA, that if you leave the plan and you want to go back to that plan, that's the plan you'll go back to, Pat.
Yes, and I really thank you, and I thank the two people on the negotiations team, but I do feel that so there's no confusion down the road, I would like to see that indemnity word written in black and white along with the percentage thing, and that I think would make a lot of retirees rest easily.
Yeah, and Pat, again, I just got off with Mary and Jonathan, and we agreed to put that in black and white.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
Anyone else with a question?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Mary.
Will retirees have to be vetted if they opt out and go into Humana first and stay there for like 2 years? Do they have to be vetted before they get their insurance back in Blue Cross Blue Shield?
I'm not sure what you mean by vetted.
Do we need to be interviewed or screened by someone to see what our health problems are before we're able to come back into the insurance, or do we just naturally be able to fall back into it?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So Excellus Blue Cross Blue Shield does absolutely no screening when it comes to health and a person's health and their health related issues. Again, I'll fall back to my earlier response, which is if the district allows a retiree to move back to the Excellus plan that the actives currently have, we just at Excellus administer the instructions of the district. So to answer your question easily, if you move off, regardless of your health condition, we don't ask questions on that. That is not our mission. If the district allows you back, we take you back.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, and Mary, the district would allow back without any vetting. So we're on record, this is being recorded. is going to be put on the webpage for all and for forever, and there will be no vetting.
Okay, thank you.
No vetting, and Pat, going back to your question, that will be in writing. So I think those two can be put to bed and put to rest.
Thank you.
Linda Roby, you have a hand up. Go ahead, Linda. I can't see everyone.
I unmuted myself. Can you hear
Okay,
me?
all right, you're all set,
Okay.
Linda. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'm hearing a lot about going back, so I'm not really understanding that. So in some instances, some of us are already there. We're on Medicare. We have Blue Cross Blue Shield as our indemnity supplemental plan. Don't we just stay? I'm confused about the wording going back. So for someone who wants to stay, who's on Medicare, is on the indemnity as a secondary, the Blue Cross Blue Shield, don't we just stay?
The way it's written right now, Linda, everyone would be moved over to the new plan. And if you wanted to go back to your old plan, you would have paperwork to fill out. And if you cannot fill out the paperwork on your own, the district would be more than happy to fill out the paperwork if you want to go back with you.
Okay, it's just a procedure of how it works. Is that what
Yes,
that is?
ma'am. So what would happen? Everyone for the ease would move over. And let's say, Linda, you wanted to go back to the plan you had, you would just have to fill out the paperwork to go back. And
Okay,
difficulty doing that, we as a district would help you do that.
and that'll be mailed to us?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and so I think I'm kind of repeating, but just to make sure, because that was confusing to me. I hadn't really heard that before about moving back. But the terms of the Blue Cross Blue Shield indemnity plan will be the same, yes?
Correct.
And the percent that we pay or the conditions that people pay will stay the same.
Yes, ma'am. That's correct again.
So I appreciate everyone, the board, everyone who's worked on this, you know, the actives, everyone for hearing us. Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
Hi, this is Barb. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
I'm just wondering when this process will happen after the vote for the budget.
What's going to happen is the CFTA has to vote on the MOU to take it to the board. Then the board has to agree. And then we would move rather fastly after that. Again, the plan would be get everyone moved over by July 1st. So I will discuss it with the board at the I'm looking up at the May 7th board meeting.
Okay, will we be notified somehow in writing when it's our opportunity to move back if we choose that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, you will get a packet.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Mary Ann
Yeah,
Anderson.
I
Go
have a
ahead.
question. Can you
Yes.
hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Okay, this is Beth Beach. And I just to clarify, as of July 1st, everybody gets moved over whether we want to or not, and then we have to fill out the papers and then we get moved back. And what is the time frame of that? How long does that take?
That I don't, Ed's not on the call. Is someone from Humana on the call that could help me with the time frame? Because I've never done it before, so I'm not really certain what the time frame is. Kristen?
Dr. Beck, this is Kristen from ENV. So my understanding is the moving back piece will happen prior to July 1st. We don't want to move people to Humana and then have you decide after. This will all take place prior to July 1st. The exact timing,
So there would be no interruption of service, basically, if we want to stay with what we've got.
correct.
As long as we fill out that form.
Correct. As Dr. Peck mentioned, we'll do this relatively quickly to, make it as seamless as possible for those folks that will move, that want, they need to get their cards by July 1st. So we've got to do this fairly quickly, but no one who wants to stay in Excellus, you'll get that paperwork very quickly, and then you'll have a time frame to return it back. And then so we can make sure that your enrollment does not go over to Humana. Okay, but we're going to assume everyone's going over unless we get paperwork back that states you want to go back to Excellus. So if we don't receive paperwork back, you will be moved, assuming the decision's made to move to Humana, you'll be moved to Humana.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kristen.
Kristen,
Because that's, I said it backwards, so I appreciate you clearing that up.
Kristen, can I just clarify too, because I had contacted Ed by email. people will have a 30-day window to complete that paperwork and return it. So they'll have ample opportunity to complete the paperwork and get it back to you.
If that's what Ed said, Ed unfortunately wasn't able to make this call, but I will confirm the time frame. I don't know, I don't have the exact time frame, but we've got to make it fairly quickly. Hopefully the decision's made soon, so 30 days would be able to be given, but we've got to give Humana enough time, assuming this move is made to Humana. They have different effective dates that they need enrollment by in order to get cards out and notify people. So
right. My concern is that people have ample opportunity to fill out that paperwork and get help with it if needed. And
Sure.
Ed did say it was a 30-day window.
Okay.
So
Yep, I will
Yep.
confirm with him, but we want to do this as soon as possible. So, you know, that's my only concern, that we've got to make sure of that. And we do want people, and that's not to say that if someone was a day late that we wouldn't honor that. Of course we would, but we've got to make as much, give Humana as much time as possible,
right.
and so forth. So we'll do everything we can. And if someone makes, the paperwork gets lost, we'll work with that. That's not a problem at all.
Okay, great. I just want to clarify one more thing. To be clear, the policies are already listed in our contract, but we asked today that they be added to the MOA as an additional assurance for people. So that's not something new. It's just something that we wanted kind of done so that it assures people that those are the policies that are available, and that's already in our contract. That's all I wanted to make sure that people understand. That's not a new development. Thanks.
I have a question. Two questions. One, will this be mailed by snail mail, physical mail, or email?
Physical mail.
Physical, good. All right. Number two, there's been a lot of presentations and back and forth and additions. Can we get a final printout of what Humana is covering?
There's actually a final printout right now on the website.
Okay.
Can
Thank
you
you.
access that? I mean, it is updated. We did put an updated one out there.
He says it's going to be sent by.
It's on the website.
It's going to be sent by mail.
Yes.
Snail mail.
Yeah.
You got to worry about your address, because that's right in.
Okay. Well, I'll do that then. Thank you.
I have a question. If you choose not to go back to Excellus, will you have other opportunities to do so?
Yes, it's open enrollment periods.
Every open enrollment periods, there's no ending time? Okay.
Not that I'm aware of.
I have a question.
Vicki, go ahead.
Thank you. This question would be for the Excellus rep. Looking over the plans, can you give me a reason why to stay with Blue Cross Blue Shield and what the benefit might be to stay with you?
So that's a difficult question, only because Excellus isn't proposing benefit change, and I can't speak to Humana or Aetna or other carriers. I don't really know what they're putting on the table for the retirees.
Okay.
And I can say a couple of things when it comes to your current plan versus Medicare Advantage plans in general. So I speak in very general terms in that way. I could say that Medicare Advantage plans are very, very, very strong plans. Excellus offers them. And to be honest with you, at some point, Excellus would hope that we would be able to offer a Medicare Advantage to the retirees someday down the road. So they are very strong. However, you do have to keep in mind, everyone has to look at the benefits and how it pertains to them. Everyone's health conditions and use of services are different. So, but a couple of things that we normally run into are prescription drug formularies. Med Advantage plans follow Medicare guidelines when it comes to benefits and prescription drug formularies. So as Medicare makes changes in those arenas, so do all Medicare Advantage plans. Your current plan does not follow Medicare guidelines. The only way your current plans change through Excellus is if the active employees plans change as well. That is a safeguard that is built in for retirees. So, you know, there are some differences in terms of services, in terms of formularies, how they pertain to each and every person. I can't say that's up to them to look at it and see how it affects them or doesn't affect them. It may not. Medicare may make changes in the future. They routinely do. Again, when that happens, your Med Advantage plan may change or will change. I could say that the indemnity plan, again, once again, doesn't follow those guidelines, so it doesn't change with Medicare changes. I'm just trying to think of other things that I've presented in general on this topic. Things like prior authorizations and step therapies. General Medicare Advantage plans do enforce those. Your current indemnity plan does not, Excellus. So if you have a service, let's say that through a Med Advantage plan requires a prior authorization, you're going to have to work with that, whoever that insurance carrier is. It's sounding like Humana. You would have to work with them to get them to approve the surgery before you could actually have it. Where the indemnity plan doesn't do that. Same thing with step therapy on prescription drugs. The Medicare Advantage plan, if you took a drug that it deemed a drug that needed step therapy on their system, they would, you'd have to work directly with that carrier to go through the steps until you could get the drug that your doctor originally prescribed. On the indemnity side, there are no prior auths, there are no step therapies. It really is a Cadillac type of plan.
Jay?
Yes.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
You're talking about a Medicare indemnity plan and talking about what they do not have. And you're actually stating that Blue Cross and Blue Shield at that point, or Excellus Blue Cross and Blue Shield at that point would be better. But Medicare would be primary after you're age 65 anyway. So even if, as you were saying, you have to have a Medicare pre-authorization, that would be standard anyway.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It's not.
For age 65 and older, it is. If it was a Medicare in primary, if Medicare is primary for age 65 and older, which it is, it's across the board, and then the Excellus, Blue Cross and Blue Shield, and you correct me, Jay, if I'm wrong, but what I'm suggesting here is that you're leading these people down a path that's not necessarily a correct path.
Nope, it's not true.
What's not? I heard someone say it's not true.
It's me. I'm sorry. This is Valerie Winters, and
Okay.
I am 65. I'm 67, and we have had the Blue Cross and Blue Shield indemnity plan. Thank God for all of our time. My husband has had 2 stents in his heart. He has had surgery on his hip in Florida.
Yep.
We went to Florida because his my son lived there. It was too cold here to have PT. I called Blue Cross and Blue Shield before he had that surgery, and I said to him, Blue Cross and Blue Shield, my husband is going to Florida. This is the name of the doctor. Is this approved? They said it is an out-of-network doctor. I said, okay, what does that mean? They said you will be still required to pay your $50 copay, your $50 yearly annual, deductible. I said, okay. We went to Florida. He had his hip replaced. We went to Georgia where my son lives to have physical therapy. We went to the Cantrell Center. They looked over our health insurance. that girl says, oh my gosh, I have not seen health insurance like this anywhere. You are allowed to come in here and have physical therapy without any prior authorization from any doctor that says you do need physical therapy. He also is on a Repatha drug because cholesterol is high. That's been advertised on the television many times. Blue Cross and Blue Shield, simply prescription. His doctor in Guthrie provided and asked for that drug. We had to go through a certain, I suppose, deal with the doctor. That Repatha was approved at over almost $1,000 a month. It has since been taken down, the price of it. He gets that, which reduces his cholesterol, which allows him to not have a heart clog, which will allow him to live the rest of his life as well as we can with this. That indemnity plan is very different from an HMO or an Advantage plan, and we have had it. I'm 67 and he's 67. We have never had to have a prior authorization. I went and had my shoulder replaced, and that was the same thing. And we didn't have any.
I'm not saying that the indemnity plan isn't a good plan. It is a great plan. However,
with no doctor pre-approval, I did not have to say I'm going to go to Dr. Wilson, which is where I went.
Right, but hang tight for 1 second. What I'm trying to say is, if you're 67, Medicare is primary anyway.
Well,
so if there was no pre-authorization, then there was no pre-authorization for Medicare.
I have two sisters, both are older than me, 65. They have different Advantage plans and PPOs, and they do not have that same health insurance. Right. I know many people who do not, even though Medicare is supposedly primary, they do not have the same advantage that I have, being the same age after 65 with a different plan, secondary plan.
But that's a federal law that Medicare is primary after age 65. Am I correct, Jay?
Again, I'm not an expert on the government programs. I'm an expert on your active plan.
Right, but after age 65, what's primary for an individual?
Well, I again, not being an expert, I think it all depends. If they are actively at work, if they're covered through their spouse who is or is not actively at work, there's different.
There are differing scenarios, but I'm talking about two retirees.
Jay, it's Kevin.
Yeah.
Jay, yeah. So if they're, like you said, if they're actively working, then the group plan would be primary still. Correct. But as the woman with the question, if they're two retirees, Medicare is always primary for retirees.
If you're over 65.
Yes, over 65.
Medicare is primary, but I had cancer 6 years ago. I ended up in Philadelphia. Even though I had the Medicare, because I had the Blue Cross supplement or Blue Cross edition, there wasn't a question that I could go to a comprehensive cancer center.
No pre-approval.
No pre-approval. Last spring, I had ended up at the Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville, Florida. They didn't do Medicare at that time, but they gladly took the Blue Cross.
There's no pre-approval.
So for me, it was a real, I'm here because of that.
So let me just jump in if I could. So that's why I began answering this question with, this is a very difficult question to answer. I can't speak to your specific plan that is being proposed. I don't work for Humana. I don't know what's on the table. So I just, again, I fall back to, I speak in very general terms on this topic, which I think I've tried to do. I am not trying to lead anybody in any direction. That's not that's not our intent here at all. Again, I'm just trying to answer a question as best I can.
Jay, this is Kristen from E&B. Just to go, you made a lot of great points, and I just want to make sure, because we've had 9 town hall meetings, and we have touched upon everything that you've spoken about, the prior authorizations. We've talked at length about that with the retirees to make sure that they knew that, one of the 2 plans, the majority of the plans that they're on with Excellus don't require them. The other plan does require them with Excellus, and there's a few folks that are on that plan. In regard to the Medicare formularies, we've been very upfront relative to the Medicare formularies and, you know, the drugs and getting all that. And so far that we've talked to people, we haven't run into issues per se. There might be one issue, but we also talked about if something's covered today and someone were to remain on the Humana plan and not go back to the Excellus plan, the district will self-insure something that's covered today that wouldn't be covered on the Humana plan. The only question I have for you, Jay, is relative to the Excellus formulary. It does change. So can you speak to how often the Excellus formulary change? Because it's not static. It does change. Every pharmacy benefit manager has formulary changes. So I don't want someone to think that the Excellus formulary never changes, because there could be a time when they're on a drug today that's not on the formulary, you know, in the future.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good question. So the Excellus in all carriers, but in this particular case, Excellus, we have what we call prescription benefits committees, and they're made up. What I think gives us a nice touch is they are made up of local physicians. When I say local, I mean upstate New York. That is our territory. So they're made up of local physicians, local pharmacy managers, and Excellus personnel. And every quarter, we look at the formulary, and if there's a need to move a drug from, let's say, a tier 3 down to a tier 1 or vice versa, the committee makes that decision. Also, at that time, we capture, or anytime throughout the year, I should say, we capture any drugs that the FDA deems should not be covered. So the FDA is always looking at the prescription drugs that we all take, and if it does find in time that there is a problem, we'll get a notification from the FDA saying, cease dispensing this drug immediately. It is starting to show serious side effects, and we all see the commercials. There's lots of commercials we see of class action lawsuits and things like that. Those are the kind of drugs that we are always moving out of our formulary. And at the same time, new drugs are coming to market, and we're always moving them into the formulary. So basically, under the Excellus plan, you have an open formulary, which means if it's an FDA-approved drug, it's covered. If it's not an FDA-approved drug, or the FDA pulls its approval at some point, we remove it. Does that answer your question, Kristen?
It does. The Humana formulary is also open, meaning it will cover all Medicare approved drugs. And like Jay said, Medicare owns that formulary. Excellus owns their formulary. So each entity makes their changes based on FDA and other, situational things. So I just wanted to make sure that folks were aware that formularies change based
right,
on.
But Kristen, if it's Excellus or Humana, it's not going to matter. They're both going to change depending on the company.
Correct. That's what I wanted to make the point of, that it's not the Excellus formulary is not stagnant. No carrier's formulary is stagnant. It can change up to 4 times a year.
So it's really apples to apples. It's just whether it's Humana or Excellus, both are going to change.
Both are going to change. The formularies themselves are not apples to apples. Jay had a great point that Excellus's formulary is different than a Medicare formulary. Medicare has very strict rules, the most strict rules. However, the folks that we've talked to here at EMB, we haven't found any issues. The only thing that we found that we're not sure if it's an exact issue is compound drugs. Excellus does cover compound drugs. Humana does cover compound drugs. However, the compound drug has to have one ingredient that's on the Medicare formulary. So that's something that was an outstanding question that we had from the 9 town hall meetings. So if you, it's a bit, compound drugs, they're not rare, but they're not very, you don't see that many of them. And we've only had, to my knowledge, 1 question on them. And so, I'm sorry, I thought I heard somebody. So that's really the one issue, the one area where we found there could be an issue, but we worked with that person and told them about what they could do at the time with Humana, or if it came out that it just wasn't covered, that the district has made that promise of the self-funding for right now to cover something that's covered today that wasn't be covered by Humana. Okay.
Linda Roby, I see you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Is there a way to let the district know which way we want to go? Like if I want to stay with Blue Cross Blue Shield without getting a Humana card, does my Blue Cross Blue Shield get canceled and then picked up? And could there be a time where something's not approved because you don't always get your cards on time? So is there a way to bypass that? Like, am I joining one, leaving and rejoining? So I'll be cut?
Kristen, go ahead. You touched on this earlier.
Yeah, no, nobody, you're not going to be put into Humana and then make the decision to go back to Excellus. We're going to do that prior to July 1st. We will do everything in our power, as long as you get the form back to us in a timely manner, that we don't want folks to have a Humana card and an Excellus card and cause confusion. What will happen is the district will make the final decision. If the final decision is to move to Humana, we will begin the implementation process with Humana and assume everyone will go over, we'll start collecting data. At the same time, a mailing will go out to the retirees to offer you the opportunity to remain with Excellus. As long as you get that information back to us prior to, the deadline, you won't get a Humana card. Now, if someone for some reason gets it to us too late, but still wants to go back to Excellus, that's fine. They could run into the situation that they might get the Humana card, but they'll know ahead of time, throw that card out, you're with Excellus, we're not going to do anything. So that is not the intent, to move to Humana and then back to Excellus. We want to do this all prior to July 1st. Does that help, Linda?
Yes, I just didn't want to have an interruption of service.
Correct. No, nobody wants that. Everyone wants. Now, if you're going to Humana and you want to check into prior authorizations for something that's up and coming, we want to get you a card as soon as possible to start that process as well. So there's 2 different things going on. We want the folks staying with Excellus to stay with Excellus with no interruptions, and the folks going to Humana have everything that they need for July 1st.
Okay. All right. Thank you for explaining.
Sure.
I just have a P with a hand up. It just says.
It's Pat, Joe, thank you. I'm sorry. Maybe I don't understand, but is there a reason why, if you're going to remain with Excellus, you have to fill out paperwork? You just simply couldn't stay? It seems like that would be an easier transition for everybody. Less work.
Kristen, you've done this before. I'll let you speak to that.
Sure. That's just how we've always done it when we're introducing a new plan, that we move everyone, and then if folks want to remain with the incumbent, they've got to fill out the paperwork to remain with the incumbent.
Okay. And I just want to thank Valerie and I can't remember, was it Vera, for sharing your stories, because that really shows that we do have a Cadillac plan, at least that's my opinion, and that you really had no issues with your situations, and I think that's a little bit helpful. Thank you. And a shout out to the negotiation team for really following up on your colleagues' questions. It's appreciated.
Quick question.
Hold on, Becky. I'm going to take Sally quick. She has her hand up. She's had up for quite a while. Sally, go ahead.
Thank you. So the re-enrollment is anytime. It could be October, it could be December, it could be next March. There's no, okay, that's
No,
one.
open enrollment is June and January of each year.
But if we wanted to go back to the Excellus plan, it would only be those 2 times?
Correct, June and January.
Gotcha. Is Humana the choice that the district has made?
I believe Humana is the way we're leaning. I have to speak with the school board to confirm that, but that is the best plan that we feel for the retirees and current employees.
Okay, thank you.
This is Kristen. One more thing that I wanted to just throw out there is there's no step therapy with the Humana plan. There is prior authorization, but there is no step therapy. So you don't have to take a less expensive drug in order to see if they'll allow you the more expensive. So that has been taken out.
Vicky,
Okay, this is when you're 65, you're enrolled in Medicare Part A. When you retire, are you supposed to be enrolled in Medicare Part B? So you would have Medicare A, B, and the Humana? Is that how it works? Or your supplemental insurance?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Question. The billing. My husband says the billing right now for us comes April. So what's
For Blue
going to
Cross
happen
Blue Shield,
for the Blue Cross? So
what covers the short period in between?
how is that going to happen?
Kristen, how do they usually do it? This is the first time, so I'm really not sure, I'll be honest.
I'm not sure what you mean by bill. Are you talking about what the district? I would think nothing changes what you have. I mean, Humana is going to bill the district for a premium and whatever payments you have set up with the district for your portion, that would remain. I think that's the question, Dr. Peck, maybe?
No.
Joe, I can answer this, Joe.
Go ahead.
The district normally sends out the retirees' health insurance in May. That becomes effective July 1st. We're not going to send it because until a decision is made and everybody back.
All right,
the billing will come out later in the year.
And that was Mark Rutrino. He's our business official that does that, so he's the expert in that area.
It's my hand up.
But the billing.
I don't see any hands up right now.
I don't know how to make my hand go up.
Okay, who's speaking?
Susan,
Yep, Susan, go ahead.
I have a couple of questions. Jay, will the Blue Cross Blue Shield pay for things that Medicare objects to or rejects?
Not usually.
Again, I'm not sure I know the answer to that. I can speak to your current plan, and Kristen brought up a good point. I can speak to your current plan as it is your only source of insurance. So I can't speak to how your current plan and Medicare and the government programs interact. I can tell you that your current plan, as long as it is deemed medically necessary, it is covered.
But Medicare is determining that, not your doctor.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I said Medicare is determining that, not your doctor.
Not with the current Excellus plan, if it's your only source of insurance. Excellus makes that determination.
No, I'm saying if you have Medicare.
Okay, yeah, and that's where I struggle to answer a question when it comes to your current plan and how it mingles in with a government program. I don't.
Okay, so let me ask that same question about Humana.
If Medicare denies it, Humana has to go with Medicare's rules and regulations.
So
they are bound by Medicare's rules and regulations.
Okay, so it's not a supplemental, it's not a total 100% supplemental thing for either one of those. If you don't have an insurance that covers the rest of whatever you can't pay, then it's not really helping you.
Yes, it is.
Well, I guess I'm not understanding your question. I'm sorry.
Our insurance would usually pay for something. The minute you go on Medicare, it doesn't necessarily pay for it.
Medicare, you are correct. Medicare's first today with Excellus. Medicare's first. And my understanding is, and Jay or Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, that if Medicare denies it, it's not automatically denied by Excellus because
No.
right now you don't have what's called a true Medicare supplemental plan,
Right.
which supplements Medicare. Today, if Medicare denied it, it doesn't mean that Excellus will pay for it, but they will look at it for medical necessity.
Okay,
Right?
so
So
I have another
that's what
They
question.
might say no.
I can speak
I have
to that.
another question for you, Kristen.
Mhm.
What exactly is on this paperwork that we have to fill out?
Yes.
To be honest, I haven't seen it. The full, it's just going to ask you to fill out some information on checking whether you're going to remain, that you want to remain with Excellus. I don't think it's going to be cumbersome. As Dr. Peck said, the district will help you. E&B will certainly help if you have any questions relative to that. It's not going to be anything difficult. It's just a signature and checking, I'm assuming, some boxes that you're saying, I want to remain with Excellus, so the district has something in writing from you saying that this is your choice and this is what you're electing to do at this time. And then come open enrollment periods for those that, you know, if you want to switch and say, hey, I've heard great things about Humana, I want to go to Humana. Or on the flip side, if you want to go back to Excellus, you have the opportunity to go back to Excellus.
Okay, I have the one last question I have for Dr. Peck and for the negotiating team is the family plan going to stay the same if we stay with Blue Cross Blue Shield?
And nothing is going to change. If you stay.
Okay,
If you stay.
thank you very much, all of you.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Yeah, you did.
Joanne,
Go ahead, Joanne.
talking about things being covered under Medicare. I recently needed to get orthotics for my shoes. Medicare denied it, but Blue Cross Blue Shield did pick it up, and they were $520, and it got picked up by Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Yeah, you got orthotic.
Do we have any other questions? Well, there's no other questions this time. I'd like to thank Jay for coming on and answering the questions. I very much appreciate that. And the retirees and the current employees at Shenango Forks appreciate it as well. So I know, time out of your day is very valuable. Thank you for coming on and helping us out today.
Thank you, Dr. Peck.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Everybody have a good day. Stay safe.
Everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Good health.
Thank you, everyone.